That thing which makes it easy to love the Canucks is that thing that also makes it difficult. They play really well as underdogs in the playoffs. At least they did. In the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, they played really well as underdogs. Then, I don't know, the heart fell out of it at some point. 1994 is remembered for this Stanley Cup run, and the weird part is I remember the 94 Canucks as being a team that wasn't as good as the 92 and 93 Canucks. But this one went further. And the strange thing is that it was to their benefit. They were a number 7 seed. They finished one game above 500 in an 84-game season. Yeah, the season was 84 games long at that point. And it really benefited them that they were the number 7 seed. Also, before I get into this, March 14th, Craig Janney was awarded to the Canucks in compensation for St. Louis signing Peter Nedved, and Janney refused to come. To which I said, good. I didn't like Janney anyways. This is what put it over the top. This is what made me say, you know what? We don't need a guy who doesn't want to be here. We really don't. And it was clear that Janney was not going to report. So that's March 14th. So for a week, all we're hearing about in Vancouver media is about how Craig Janney won't report to the Canucks. He's not coming. Nothing will make him come, no matter what we do. So a week later, he's traded back to St. Louis for Jeff Brown, Brett Hedican, and Nathan Lafayette. And for that, I say thank you, Craig Janney, for helping the Vancouver Canucks get over that hump. Because those 3 players would play major role in getting the Canucks where they got. First round. They beat Calgary 5-0 in Game 1. And what did I say? I said, well, at least they didn't get swept. I was realistic. They lost Game 2 7-5. They lost Game 3 4-2. They lost Game 5 3-2. Or Game 4 3-2. And I coming into Game 5, I was like, all right, well, you know, they're not as good as they were in 92 or 93. So being out in the first round, maybe this will force some changes. That's where my mind was at going into this one. They won Game 5 2-1 in overtime, and I was like, oh, okay. And it was a beauty. And then Game 6 in overtime, 3-2, and I'm like, oh, well, they forced a Game 7. But that's back in Calgary. They're not going to win. They force overtime. And I was like, oh, maybe. So a friend of mine and I, we've been kind of playing video games and kind of ignoring it because we figured Vancouver's going to lose in the game. And overtime is, we're like, we should probably pay more attention to the game. And the Canucks went in double overtime, and my friend and I went nuts. And that really was the Stanley Cup moment right there. That was that moment of happiness. The Vancouver Canucks give you that brief moment of happiness. They give you those enough that you feel optimistic, and then they dash those hopes later. Against Dallas, was I excited for this series? I was like, all right, I got some Dallas jerseys. I got some Canucks jerseys. I like Dallas, and I like Vancouver. I'm really going to enjoy this series. Let's hope it goes to 7. Because the hockey gods hate me, it went to 5. But because they don't hate me so much that they won't answer my calls, Vancouver wins it. They win 6-4 in Game 1. They win 3-0 in Game 2. And I'm like, wait, what? No. Now, the format was different this year, and this was the only year this format existed. And I would be dishonest if I said this didn't play a role in getting Vancouver to the Stanley Cup final. Games 3, 4, and 5 were all in Vancouver. That 2-3-2 format the NBA had, Bettman tried bringing it in with him. It didn't work. Vancouver loses Game 3 at home, 4-3. They win Game 4, 2-1 in overtime. This should have been headed back to Dallas for Game 5. Game 5 is in Vancouver. Huge advantage. Vancouver wins at 4-2. Now, Toronto, they lose Game 1, 3-2 in overtime. Game 2, they win 4-3. Game 3, they win 4-0. And Game 4, they win 4-0. But remember, Games 3, 4, and 5 are in Toronto. Or in Vancouver. because Vancouver is a number 7 seed. So they don't have home ice, but they kind of do. And Game 5 at home, 4-3. That might be the most nervous I've ever been as a hockey fan. Ever. I'm trying to think of since then, and I can't think of a time when I was more nervous as a Canucks fan than that. That was an incredible Game 5 win for Vancouver. Greg Adams, my hero. Just like Linden, Courtnall, Bure. There are a lot of heroes in these series. And the only thing that bothered me about this Stanley Cup final run, and if it's anything, is that it did kind of wash over the fact that there were some issues with the team, and there were some depth issues that would come up after this series. And 95, everything started falling apart in 95. But for this year, for this spring, everything was perfect. 7 games in the finals, and this was the best Stanley Cup final to this day that I've ever seen. The Rangers were stunned when Vancouver won in New York 3-2 in overtime. Game 2, Rangers win that one 3-1. The Rangers win Game 3 5-1. They win Game 4 4-2. And this is back to the 2-2-1-1-1, so it's not 2 in one city, 3 in the other, and 2 in they go back to 2-2-1-1-1 for the final. So coming out of Game 4 in Vancouver, they'd lost both in Vancouver. Game 5's in New York, and I was like, okay, so this is it. So Vancouver gets a 3-0 lead. Then the Rangers storm back and tie it, and then Vancouver wins it 6-3. That was the biggest roller coaster a hockey game has ever set me on. So I go from yes, this is great, to oh crap, they're going to blow it, to holy crap, they're not going to blow it, and it was a great night. So Game 6, I watched this one at a friend's house. She had a game viewing party, and I remember just the whole game being in Vancouver's favor. And it was fun. It was genuinely a fun night. 4-1 win for Vancouver, and wow, that was one of the best games that Vancouver's played. And then you look into what was going on. There were a lot of aches and pains. Linden had was playing with cracked ribs for the last 4 games and torn cartilage, getting injections directly between his ribs and down the hallway, so you'd hear him screaming from the Vancouver locker room, and then he'd walk in like nothing happened. And then, of course, Game 7, the Rangers win this one 3-2. Late in the game, Nathan Lafayette has a wide open shot and hits the post. Bure, 16 goals in those playoffs, 15 assists, 31 points. Trevor Linden, 12 goals and 13 assists. He tried to will Vancouver to that Stanley Cup. He didn't care if his ribs came with him or not. Courtnall, 9 goals and 10 assists. Brown, 6 goals and 9 assists. Cliff Ronning, 5 goals, 10 assists. Greg Adams, 6 goals, 8 assists. Murray Craven, 4 goals, 9 assists. Jyrki Lume, 2 goals and 11 assists. Jelena, 5 goals, 4 assists. Nathan Lafayette, 2 goals, 7 assists. Dave Babbage, 3 goals, 5 assists. Gerald Didick, 1 goal, 7 assists. Sergio Momesso, 3 goals, 4 assists. Hedican had a goal and 6 assists. Kirk McLean, 15 wins, 9 losses, 2.29 goals against, 928 save percentage. Go back, watch all the other finalist videos again, and tell me one that was better than McLean. If the Canucks had won that Game 7, for me, McLean would have been the Conn Smythe winner. And coming out of this playoff run, I'm going to go ahead and put stars next to players who were my favorites on the Canucks coming out of that run. So Hedican, Babbage, Jelena, Adams, Ronning, Courtnall, Linden, Bure, McLean. Brown, not as much. I was never a huge fan of Browns, and that, just me. But when it comes to guys who were my favorites, I was like, yeah, I'm rooting for them. The guys with the Red Stars. You'll notice there's a lot of them there, and you'll probably see a number of them in my Hall of Fame, because that's kind of how that works. But it was quite the run. It was amazing, and it was fun while it lasted. And as a Canucks fan, I cannot explain how amazing this run was. As a Canucks fan, I cannot truly encapsulate just how much fun this was to watch and how horrifying it was at the same time, because they went to overtime 7 times. They won 6 times, but it was nerve-wracking every time they were in overtime. Because a lot of those games felt like they have to win this. And that's because in 4 cases, they could either eliminate the other team or their back was against the wall. So this is why they were called the Cardiac Canucks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And there you go, the 1994 Vancouver Canucks.